Hi everyone. Your first task this week is a discussion called Map It Out, and it's all about something called bias. You've probably heard the word before. In writing, bias is an area where the author is maybe not being as objective as they could be. Maybe they're disregarding a certain set of facts because those facts don't align with their preconceived notions about the topic. Maybe you're giving too much attention and importance to a minor aspect of the topic because that aspect confirms what the writer already thinks. For example, I remember once when the last book in the Harry Potter series was released, I saw a review in the New York Times. And the review was all lofty, like the character names are silly and it's not realistic. And, first of all, I'm looking at this as it's meant for younger audiences and all ages. Second, it's fantasy. It's not supposed to be realistic, Pulitzer Prize winning drama, or anything like that. The writer was clearly writing and with a bias of some kind, whether against Harry Potter in general, or young adult literature and fantasy literature, or popular literature. Who knows? The weird thing is, every piece of writing has bias. We all do it. We all have our own perspectives, our own experiences, and all of that goes into what we do, what we write, what we create. No matter how objective we think we are being, we are human beings. We're not robots. And, I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, so my experience up to the age of 12 is very different from someone who grew up in a city or in another country. And we bring with us all of that baggage. The bias may be really minimal in some cases, it might be really strong. So it's really important for us to understand how to find that bias and see how it affects the overall issue. Articles that are strongly biased may be less reliable, or at the very least offer a skewed perspective of the topic. So, for the Map It Out discussion this week, you're going to work on identifying bias. It's helpful to think of a writer's bias and their motives, attitudes, and perspectives, or map. The map dictates what aspect of the issue a writer might explore, and which they tend to avoid. For instance, a writer who is strongly biased against something may not acknowledge its good points, while a writer who is biased in favor of something might not acknowledge its faults. By participating in this discussion, you'll begin to develop the necessary analytical and critical thinking skills to identify bias in its many forms. The ability to recognize bias is a transferable skill, meaning that it applies to any industry, and it will be essential in your career.